Sorry, I don't know how much space I have left on here, but I had to record this because this is one he was making. This is something about the secret space program. He was making note that test runs would go by every Thursday morning at something like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:45. For the past couple nights, I've heard really loud ones, but I should really start to note. Let's see, we're already at December 4th. So approximately 2 a.m. But yeah, we gotta listen to this stuff here. And I think I have fucking pictures of the reflection of that fucking thing right there. No joke. Like, coming off the sun. Because what the fuck else? It looks just like that or something very similar. Scary. And then he pointed out this other one that looks like the plane that goes by. It's super fucking loud. And then it has this like housing on top of it. But I guess it's the air intake. But I've taken photos of it and it looks like a little like Pac-Man face. And it's red. And then it just went over the other day. I took a video of it. So I should really kind of look into if they really know what it's called, like an A37 or something. I don't know. But yeah. Whoa. Play. I gotta scroll down for it. And I was at about 20 minutes.
And throw jet fuel on it and ignite the whole thing. So I ask all of you, is it that our Area 51 engineers are dying of cancer when you've got this acrid, toxic smoke burning in Thursday morning, morning at like 6:58 a.m., 7:05 a.m., repeatedly on the last Thursday of the month during 1991 and 1992. Always on a Thursday. Why a Thursday? Because in the black world, Area 51, Air Force Plant 42, test flights are done on a Thursday because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are used for prep. Thursday is the test flight, Friday is the debrief, Saturday and Sunday there's no one there. And so that's why Thursdays are very apparent in the black world. This is an article, a paper that was received by Lee Graham from the United States Department of Interior. It says, "Dear Mr. Graham, in response to your letter of 31/1992, please find enclosed a copy of data recorded by a seismograph at Catalina Island for the sonic boom of January 30th, 1992. So if you look at what's done here, here's what he says. Last Thursday of the month, Thursday, October 31st, 1991, and remember, these tick marks are 1 minute apart. So boom, right? This is your Aurora returning from an overseas mission. Now, about a minute later, another boom right here. So you might think, oh, that's that mothership, right? Returning along with it. The mothership isn't even back yet. It doesn't even fly the same pattern. So this might be either an F-16 or an F-15 flying as a safety chase aircraft. So it's not the mothership.
Parasitic aircraft. Again, Thursday, June 27th.
So it's the mothership of a parasitic aircraft. What the fuck does that mean?
Boom. About
aliens.
A minute later, another boom. So this is, again, seismic instrument readouts. Thursday, November 21st, 1991. We have another boom here, and then it says, bingo! It must be an American bird. They didn't want to work on Thanksgiving Day. So this time, it wasn't on the last Thursday of the month. It was the week prior. So you know, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of ours. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Catalina Island, Thursday, January 30th, 1992, 7:17 a.m. Another boom, and then about a minute and a half later, number 2. So you can see you've got this parasitic aircraft flying over Catalina Island. It wakes everybody up in the morning in Los Angeles, and then a chase plane follows it. Here's the track, returning to Area 51, going over Catalina Island, Los Angeles. waking everybody up, then heading north of Edwards Air Force Base, going into Tonopah Test Range, and then into Area 51. So I want to give you kind of a brief cross-section of what their flight pattern looks like. Catalina Island, Thursday, April 16th, 1992, 6:58 a.m. Always on a Thursday, always on a Thursday. Mount Wilson, April 16th, 1992, Thursday, 7:02, another one. It just goes on and on. The evidence is overwhelming. Okay, so here is a typical Snowbird mission profile flight path. This came from Jim. I said, Jim, what's the flight path of these aircraft? And so he said, this is Jim Goodall's interpretation of what these aircraft may be flying. He believes,
I think they go over me,
that this is a nuclear proliferation monitoring aircraft, because at the fall of the Soviet Union, they had to figure out a way to monitor all this fissionable material that was kind of loose within the Soviet Union. So he believes it's a nuclear proliferation monitoring aircraft. So what you do here is you start at Area 51. You take off from Area 51. You take up a magnetic heading of 310 degrees. You fly over Alaska. At this point here, you're still with the mothership. You're at about 30,000 feet at Mach 1.7. It's at this point you launch from the mothership. You pour the coals to it right here. You go over Russia. You make a 90-degree left-hand turn. You start heading south.
Hey, I've seen it do that.
You're over Israel, right in this area right here. Once you get down here, you make another turn. Now you pour the coals to it right here. You're heading back. At this point, you're over here. Now you're near Hawaii. You're starting to make a left-hand turn. Now we're heading into California. That's where we go over Catalina Island. This is where we wake everybody up at 7:02 a.m., right back to Area 51. So that may be the mission profile of what these aircraft are actually following. Now, this is something I got from the John Andrews collection, which I was fortunate enough to acquire. This is 14th August 1981. Letter to Ben Rich, former head of Lockheed Skunk Works between 1975 and 1991. It says, Ben Rich, your crew responsible for two very strange birds leaving at dawn, just at first light from George Air Force Base. One white, one gray, said to be very Lippish-like, good acceleration, good climb. Don't loiter around George and not seen for the rest of the day. So John included a sketch of something that may have departed George Air Force Base, August 1981. Now, turns out that there's some very good information from Bill Scott, who's the former Rocky Mountain editor of Aviation Week Space Technology.
So cloudy too,
this is March 6, 2006, talking about a program called Black Star.
It's crazy that, okay, so they make it so we can't see them with all the clouds, but it's probably one or numerous ones of these fucking what this guy's talking about. And again, if you try to tie in there, well, what does sound also do? How does it move the planet? How is that the things making the sound even fucking moving? I think we just really need to really just step back and think about it and just ask questions and see what we got for info so far. Or what do we know so far?
It appears, ladies and gentlemen, that there are two versions of this technology. There's one built by Lockheed that's launched from the spine of a mothership. And then Boeing has one called
like
Black Star,
holy shit,
which is airdrop from the belly of the craft. So that's the different kind of...
Holy shit. So what about when you see the planes one right after another up high there? This is what they're doing. So it's like, why are those planes like one right after another? Oh, they're just refueling. They're just refueling. Well, no, it's a fucking plane dropping another plane out from underneath it. More than likely. Wow. All over our fucking skies. Those assholes. And monitoring us. That's what a digital real-time monitoring is. It's like getting how everybody feels. So yeah, no wonder they love coming over. 'Cause I love everything. Just like when I was in the hospital, they're like, oh, look, it's the calmest person in the floor. Or the most relaxed person on the floor, yeah. The most relaxed person in the whole building. They would come in and, yeah, my heart rate was always low. I was always in control. Until they gave me some medicine and then I was about ready to kill them. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, please sneeze. It's very windy right now, too, so if these things are up there going Mach 3, what does that do to our air down here? Probably creates what? A low pressure? I'm supposed to look at my little whatever. So how about debunking fucking meteorology? Fuck that shit. See, these people are all just fucking brainwashed into being like, yep, this is what I got that test. I better remember. Better memorize it. I better not understand it. And then the people like myself who understand it. Like, if I was to try to talk to one of my friends, he's recently going to school for HVAC stuff, and he's got all these tests, and it's all about chemistry and gases, and it's like, yeah, well, I look into that stuff too. My tarps that are up are doing like running leg things. Like one's going in and one's going out. It looks like it's running. But if I was to try to explain to him and be like, yo, there's a little bit more to it than that. How about this? Well, no, that's, there's many people who are quick to just like fight what they believe in their head is true. And I mean, why can't people just listen to what other people want to say and be like, okay, well, cool. And, like, on to the next conversation. But everybody's so hell-bent on wanting to voice their fucking opinion or something. And it's probably because these planes going over, one, are inducing sound waves, fucking scalar waves. Like, it's just like there's so many things that if you're not fucking paying attention, or I don't know. I'm so thankful and grateful I'm even here right now in this mind. Oh, shit. Just what I needed. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh my god, that was so loud and my heart still hurts. Oh yeah. It's just like, yeah, I really do before winter. I need to take all my little crystals and make a boundary. But man, and like 2 helicopters went over the other day, today and yesterday. Whatever though. I ain't scared. I've got nothing eyes. I don't like I'm doing anything wrong. Since he's in my brain.
Configurations that are used. This is a Steve Douglas illustration with an XB70.
I would say though, from my ground, you can't quite tell what they kind of look like, really. I mean, I wouldn't be able to make out that those look like that kind of craft, but they kind of look like regular craft. So, and these are also drawings too. So, I got lots of videos of it.
Type configuration. Is there any proof to back this up? This is a U.S. patent, February 7th, 1982, 1989 by Boeing.
It's
and
in
they
the 80s
include
too.
a parasitic aircraft that actually fits up inside an indented section under the belly of the mothership.
Okay, so he's talking parasitic. So what do we know what the word parasitic means? I never can spit this out, but I get the words in my head. Parasitic can mean illing, right? Multiplying, virus, bacterial, like it feeds off its host, like it's gonna, you know what I mean? It's whatever. So what if these are where the particles come from? So it's parasitic because it's fucking contrails exhaust is nanotechnology purchased by whomever. You spray it, by the time it goes through these jet propulsion things, it then goes on to its next phase of life. Into the little, I want to say nanotubules, but when it's as a fuel additive, once it hits the high heat, it's on to its next phase. And so this next phase is it's to go floating down through the air, and then if by chance, so take this, so we get the sound of whatever. So if you aren't creating a harmonious tone, which would probably be at that 7.83 hertz, like fucking, what, the solfeggio, is that his name? What the earth resonates at. And I always try to remember, because my birthday is 7/12/83, so I think it's 7.83 hertz is what it radiates at. And then, so somehow, right, and so we're not operating at that. We don't even broadcast anything not at the 440 hertz, which if you look at it on a oscilloscope, and then if you were to even make a thing, another like magnometer thing, or magnometer, you get the speaker thing, I think it's an oscilloscope. And like, so when you heard, like, say if you're looking at an oscilloscope and you heard a bird chirp, say if your eyes were shut, within the things that you see in your eyes, or after you blink in your eyes, to me, that's where I guess I see vibrations and shit like that. So with eyes open and shut, but it's like a really faint, like a layer on top of a layer almost, or something, because I've seen it by just or I've been able to correlate what I'm seeing visually just sitting in my car. And this was when I was like, I think 8 months gone through my non-GMO detox. Like, it was non-GMO peanut butter and jelly, butter bread. I have poached eggs every day, or I try to, but I did then. I drank coconut milk, vanilla. That was about it. But it was the best thing for me for my sick past, but that's a whole other story. But yeah. And if people aren't even aware of what's going on around them, who knows? Who's to say? I want to do a survey to be like, yo, how often do you hear the planes go by? When you hear the planes go by, do you ever look out the window? Are you ever driving down the road when you see them or hear them? Do you look up at them? Do you even notice them? Oh, that's what I was talking about. So with other research, like Harold Kaltzfella and such, and his partner there, Kara, like when I came across that, and her mother lived in Bangor, Maine, and actually got run over at 80 years old down in Damariscotta somewhere. Maybe I'll think of her name. But so he's a scientist, did his own research, has been doing it for about 10 years, and now he has some data. So he shared a lot of data with us, and then it's just like, without being, or whatnot. But at the same time, I'm coming across and finding these videos or these people and reading these things. At the same time, I'm thinking them silently to myself in my head. And then I see it here, and which is great. That's really great, because that just shows to me that, okay, I'm tapped into a different universal consciousness, the one that needs to be overriding this AI system, this fucking parasitic whatever. So if that still brings it down to it, like where, just like on the LHC, it used the word deceased. They use some other crazy words there when I look at my little app there. But okay, back to this. Hey, like that?
So we've got patents to back this up. We've got eyewitnesses reported within that article that also talk about this as well. Then we come across this particular letter
you guys
Pete Ames from John Andrews. It says 22nd February 1994.
My brother's birthday.
Kadena Air Force Base. The time, the weekend of 12-13 February 1994. It says, emergency call from manned aircraft to expedite recovery at Kadena Air Force Base, coming from north, tracked speed at Mach 4.2, diversions for other aircraft in area. Aircraft recovered and quickly placed in secure hangar. Red 3 lockdown declared by base. Other pilots landing kept and slept in ready quarters. One white-gray C-5 launched from Holloman Air Force Base. 3-day lockdown at base. So something made an emergency landing at Kadena Air Force Base. And this is the configuration per the Bill Scott article. They also mentioned that there was a solid rocket booster that is loaded into the aft end of this vehicle. So we're definitely talking at least Mach 4.2 for this particular configuration. The truth is out. Air Forces Monthly, March 1997, September 26, 1994.
Air Force Monthly, I want that magazine.
Of an event that has never been talked about in American press. I had to get an overseas publication for this. And the details regarding this case was a top secret aircraft believed to have been a classified variant of the YF-23 by Northrop. Had a crew of 2. On the application of military power, somehow the landing gear collapsed right up here on the nose gear, and this thing kind of ground to a halt. The pilots were fine. They had to tow it back to a hangar. It stayed in that hangar for 2 nights, and it had a tarp over the midsection. The aft section and the forward section was still exposed, so people could see what this thing actually looked like. On the 3rd day, a C-5 Galaxy was flown into RAF Boscombe Down. This is where this took place. And as they were departing, air traffic controllers and monitoring public on the ground overheard the transmission that the C-5 Galaxy was going to KPMD. So anyone who knows what KPMD is, that's Palmdale. That's the identifier for Palmdale. They were flying back to Palmdale. This is the configuration of what we actually believe this aircraft looks like.
I've seen that.
Was a variant of the YF-23 2-seat aircraft with 2 inward canted vertical stabilizers, other than the YF-23 version that has 2 outward canted vertical stabilizers. So we get to the B-2 stealth bomber. $2.3 billion per aircraft, more than its own weight in gold. That's what we're talking about here. 21 of these.
Dude, this happens to me. You know how many guys have hit me up in like the past fucking week? Man, it's just the fucking government trying to distract me and get me knocked up.
Aircraft were
that was
built.
Josh from the Martin Party. I would
Tremendous amount of money. I call this the $10 billion photograph because we've got 4 B-2s at the Pico Rivera plant. 2.3, that's about $10 billion right there.
Whoa. I know I've seen that bitch.
It's a 172-foot wingspan. The question is, and Mark talked about this before, is there more going on to the B-2 than meets the eye? Aviation Week Space Technology, March 9th, 1992, had a very interesting article from people who worked at Northrop who were very upset that the technology associated with the B-2 program was not being trickled down to the public industry. They talk about how the B-2 electrically charges the leading edge of the wing to reduce the radar cross signature. That's what you see in this diagram right here. And then negatively charges the exhaust gases to reduce the infrared signature. This is the same type electrogravitic technology that T. Townsend Brown had originally proposed in the 1930s. So this technology might date back a lot earlier than we originally thought.
And then think of this.
The proof about this.
And then think of this. So he even just said negative there. So when these particles, these things are coming out in that negative whatever, no matter what, negative or positive, it's going to want to attract itself, want to make more of it. That's what that black goo is. That's what our life force is, you know, like our crystal quartz fucking liquid, you know? And it can be either like siphoned out or eaten, or not eaten, but just like sucked up by somebody else or the other people to perpetuate a state of something else in your mind that's not like where your head should be at, because there is another universal consciousness, which is a fucking wonderful place. And then once we were all just aware, or just even fucking aware, I don't doubt that it just doesn't it just makes sense. So now those particles come down, they come in contact with everybody down here, then they come in contact with the fucking electrical field that's already around here, or the field that's already produced here by many things, Wi-Fi signals, the fucking railroad tracks. And then if you need to fucking combine this bullshit I hear outside when you're outside all night, and you learn what accelerometers are and all that shit, it's like, well, there's something very interesting going on. Maybe it's not so evil, because it's like, you know, this is perhaps the next step into, you know, our infinite divine self without it being obstructed or controlled or taken over by something else. Maybe. I'm crazy.
This comes from Electrogravitic Systems by Thomas Vallone, so you can back that up. And then I recently came across some information from a General Dynamics engineer who had previously worked in the black world. And basically he said, you know, I'm done with the black world. I've been there. I'm through with it. I'm now a biker. So he left the black world behind. And he said that according to this particular General Dynamics engineer who worked on the B-2 program, he said that for every 3 B-2s that are built, for every 3, turns out that there's 7 anti-gravity versions of this B-2 that are actually built, according to this General Dynamics engineer. Now, September 1967, a naval combat veteran by the name of Jack Pickett, who I was really good friends with, he's no longer with us, he claims that during September 1967, he was a publisher of the NCO Club newspaper, and they were going down a perimeter road space, which is in Tampa, and they got to this area right here, which is called the base scrapyard. And when he got there, he looked over the chain link fence and saw 4 of the most incredible aircraft that he had ever seen in his entire life. Just an incredible configuration. They measured 20, 40, 70. The largest one was 116 feet in diameter. They all had the same configuration, but different sizes. They had tricycle landing gear. There was an air intake on both sides of the pilot's compartment. And then this very huge vertical tail that tapered back to the pilot's compartment had control surfaces along the circumference of the disc. So this is September 1967. This is the long-range bomber version of this aircraft. According to Jack, he was told that this was used as a long-range reconnaissance bomber during the Cold War. And so he asked a lot of questions from the general who was over at MacDill Air Force Base and inquired about putting together an article for the base publication newsletter. He was given authorization to write that article, which was titled Flying Saucers for Real, and then he was given 16 officially stamped black and white glossy photographs of these aircraft parked on the tarmac, in flight, also with F-86 jet fighter interceptors, F-84 jet fighter interceptors as well, and had a tremendous amount of information regarding this program all ready to go into this article. But then it turns out, just before going to press with this particular article, there was an overflight of a VTO version of this down the runway. This is a horizontal takeoff bird. That particular aircraft suffered a propulsion system malfunction, dropped down to treetop level, flew directly over Miami at high speed and woke everyone up. The next morning it was all over the newspapers, all over the news. And so he brought that newspaper into the general's office the next morning and said, General, I think we've got a problem here because I'm getting ready to declassify and release this jet-powered disc that you have at the scrapyard, but then you're denying the existence of this aircraft that flew over downtown Miami. What do you guys want to do about it? So that general contacted Offutt Air Force Base, contacted the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Air Force, and according to the Secretary of the Air Force, it would be in the better interest of the Air Force to delay publication, and that's where this story died back in 1967. So we were within hours of getting the truth about one of our classified programs brought into the public domain within hours, but then it was canceled. So now we want to move on to flying triangles. They've been seen all around the world since at least 1974, without a doubt. We've got November 29th, 1989, Belgium was seen. January 5th, 2000, Southern Illinois. Area 51, Groom Lake. They've been seen almost in every country by every possible culture. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. We've got a case over here of a red one with this exhaust port here. We've got a case in Detroit. We've got Belgium cases. So a brief cross-section of these aircraft have been seen all around the world. The primary features of these triangles, they usually have a white light on the corner of each of the triangle. Some of these are between 200 and 300 feet across. This midsection is generally about 20 feet across. And then there's always this interesting structural work on the bottom and probably a red or amber light in the center of the bottom section of the craft. That's kind of the overall view of what we see here. March 31st, 1999, Kirby, a very significant sighting. And if anyone in this room is a skeptic,
hey, I was just going to say,
I just invite you to look at this gentleman's
I was just gonna say the one that I saw, it has the bottom's white, like the whole inside of it, so it looks like the inside of it's white. And then usually when the photo comes out, it looks like it's doing this whole other thing. I should have just fucking said that out loud because now it's like, oh, I've seen that one. Listen, there goes another fucking plane right now. I love you. Have a good day. Hopefully your studies go well. Whoops. Just see as it goes by. Right. Ah. I like this guy, Marty Leeds. Marty Leeds 33. I gotta memorize that more.
First picked this up. It was seen over Dupo County.
Oh, damn, I didn't know. Let's
within
pause.
southern Illinois, not too far
We just
from
missed
St.
a whole
Louis.
bunch.
May 23rd, 2001, Allen Park, Michigan. This gentleman saw the Dale Air Force Base and inquired about putting together an article for the base publication newsletter. He was given authorization to write that article, which was titled Flying Saucers for Real, and then he was given 16 officially stamped black and white glossy photographs of these aircraft parked on the tarmac, in flight, also with F-86 jet fighter interceptors, F-84 jet fighter interceptors as well, and had a tremendous amount of information regarding this program all ready to go into this article. But then it turns out, just before going to press with this particular article, there was an overflight of a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing version of this aircraft, which rolls down the runway. This is a horizontal takeoff bird. That particular aircraft suffered a propulsion system malfunction, dropped down to treetop level, flew directly over Miami at high speed, and woke everyone up. The next morning it was all over the newspapers, all over the news, and so he brought that newspaper into the general's office the next morning and said, "General, I think we've got a problem here, because I'm getting ready to declassify and release this jet-powered disc that you have at the scrapyard, but then you're denying the existence of this aircraft that flew over downtown Miami. What do you guys want to do about it?" So that general contacted Offutt Air Force Base, contacted the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Air Force, and according to the Secretary of the Air Force, it would be in the better interest of the Air Force to delay publication, and that's where this story died back in 1967. So we were within hours of getting the truth about one of our classified programs brought into the public domain within hours, but then it was canceled. So now we want to move on to flying triangles. They've been seen all around the world since at least 1974, without a doubt. We've got November 9th, 1989, Belgium was seen. January 5th, 2000, Southern Illinois. Area 51, Groom Lake. They've been seen almost in every country by every possible culture. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. We've got a case over here, the red one with this exhaust port here. We've got a case in Detroit. We've got Belgian cases. So a brief cross-section of these aircraft have been seen all around the world. The primary features of these triangles, they usually have a white light on the corner of each of the triangle. Some of these are between 200 and 300 feet across. This midsection is generally about 20 feet across. And then there's always this interesting structural work on the bottom and probably a red or amber light in the center of the bottom section of the craft. That's kind of the overall view of what we see here. March 31st, 1999, Kirby, a very significant sighting. And if anyone in this room is a skeptic, I just invite you to look at this gentleman's testimony. Colin Saunders, you can Google him. He gave a really nice 20-minute lecture regarding this particular sighting. a very honest gentleman. I totally believe his case. He was with his family driving home at around 9:50 p.m. after dinner when they came across this particular craft. He saw the aft end of it first. It was tilted up at about 15-degree angle of attack on the left-hand side. And then he said the bottom of this craft tipped up, but it tipped up from the back end. And he said, he used the term that it looked like it was submerged underwater. That's how this actually moved underwater. Here's the view of what it looked like from the aft end. He said it was totally silent, and then he said it had these very interesting raised box sections on the top of the craft. The exterior pictorial version of the exterior of the craft looked like a flowing liquid mercury. It was almost alive. And he said that it was his belief that these extruded sections here were part of a docking mechanism with a larger craft. So as this thing flew over, he could see the bottom of it. It also had these raised sections as well. And then as this thing flew over, you can see a forward section right here. It disappeared from view, but then way off into the far horizon, there was a much larger ship that had a red light on one side and a green light on the other side. And he said that this particular aircraft appeared to be trying to dock with that larger craft. So that may be the reason for these interesting raised sections here. This thing was approximately 50 feet across in conjunction with a Cessna 172 that has a 27-foot wingspan. Here's Colin Sanders here. Here's his UFO model. And when I saw that UFO model, I said, wow, I want to have one of those. Ow. So I took his technical blueprint, and then in AutoCAD, I put together this schematic drawing here, which is a cardboard stock model. And I produced this for each and every one of you. So you can have a black and white version of this, so you can build your own UFO at home, which is an actual authenticated case. This is what the model looks like right here. This is what the bottom of it looks right here. And so I have one for each one of you. Now, November 22nd, 1985, 15 miles northwest of Madison, Wisconsin. Very interesting case because of this interesting tube section on the bottom of this aircraft. But we don't only have the illustration, we've got the eyewitness testimony. It says the underside of the craft resembled, quote, the back of a refrigerator, like a collection of condensation pipes that ran back and forth. So keep that in mind kind of as we proceed here. I asked the question, is that what you would expect to see on the bottom of an alien spacecraft? I mean, really, I thought you aliens were 100 million light years ahead of us, and yet you're flying around in these vehicles that look like the back of a refrigerator? Someone's lying to you, folks. Someone's lying to you. I can assure you that. January 5th, 2000. This was the first mass sighting of triangular aircraft after the year 2000, seen by at least 4 police officers, seen by a miniature golf owner who said that this craft looked like a 2-story ranch fly right over his golf course. Very well documented case. Another case for skeptics that might be sitting on the fence. Please examine the January 5th, 2000 overflight of southern Illinois by these triangular-shaped craft. Some of these had a red and green section in the aft portion. Always these white lights at each of the corners, and then an amber or red light below the belly of the craft. Newspaper clipping service picked this up. It was seen over DuPont County, multiple counties within southern Illinois, not too far from St. Louis. May 23rd, 2001, Allen Park, Michigan. This gentleman saw this craft fly over his taxi, actually, blocked out the stars as it flew over. April 3rd through the 5th, 1975, Lumberton, North Carolina. This craft was seen by multiple police officers. It had an interesting cutout notch section in the back end of the triangle, red lights along the leading section here, and then a high-intensity white light that was shining down a beam onto the ground, seen by multiple eyewitnesses. This is the cutaway drawing here and shows you kind of an isometric view. This is the row of the lights on the leading edge of the craft. Again, this cutout section is another motif that we see throughout these different craft. Now, this is a very interesting case that I got from David Marler, who is the premier researcher in triangular UFOs. We don't have a date, but we know the location was Oregon. According to this eyewitness, this particular craft was about 180 feet across, large triangular-shaped craft with these rounded corners in this location here. According to the eyewitness, this particular craft parked itself, hovered about 20 feet above the river, the Little Pudding River in Oregon, and then it started dropping down this 8 to 10 foot diameter metallic tube, went right into the river, started sucking up this water, and then he noticed that right next to this tube, water was coming out too. So the water's going up, water's coming down. And then he said there was a blue beam of light that exited off the left end of the craft. And then he said something very interesting. There was lights pulsating across the circumference here. And then there what looked like these 3 landing gear legs that popped out of the bottom, but these weren't landing gear legs. He called them overflow valves because water was shooting out of these overflow valves. And then there were 3 orange orbs that popped out of the bottom of this thing. About 2 minutes later, after this had completed whatever it was doing, he said it sounded like a washer machine. These orbs merged back into the craft. This craft slowly took off, and then when it reached about an altitude of about 1,000 feet, this thing took off like a spark off a grinding wheel. So that was that particular, almost a USO case. Enormous turbine blade UFO, January 21st, in Puerto Rico, also came from the David Marler files. Wow. Basically, a primary eyewitness saw this particular craft hover near his location. Now, if you look at the size, he estimates between 500 and 800 feet across. We're talking a massive ship here. Multicolored lights along the leading portion of the vehicle. Then he said it had this section on the bottom that had these rotating turbine blades. But it was his impression that these turbine blades were rotating far too slow to support this vehicle. So there's no way it could be the primary source of propulsion, according to the eyewitness. He also said that there was a strange being that had a pear-shaped head on a transparent cupola or dome section of this aircraft. 2 minutes after observing this aircraft, a black 4x4 vehicle pulled up right next to him. A security agent got out of that vehicle, started questioning about this particular craft. No sooner did that security agent start interrogating the primary eyewitness, 2 identical craft to this first one popped out of the clouds and started following. This craft at that point started introducing it was kind of like a smoky blue glow around this vehicle, and then this thing took off. The other ones were trying to chase after it, but they couldn't get it. So this is January 1st, 1997. Another case from the David Marler files, a particular illustration here. August 25th, 1990, Barnsley, England. Primary eyewitness and his wife were returning from a Fleetwood Mac concert at night when out of nowhere coming this strange triangular-shaped craft that he estimated between 100 and 200 feet across emerged from a dark, misty cloud directly below the cloud bank. And he said he saw it long enough, 30 seconds, long enough to get some really good details. It had 1 light on each terminating point of the triangle, 1 light on the bottom here that was white, and then he said it had this recessed section on the belly of the craft. And in that recessed section, he could see what looked like cross-beam and girder construction, very structural construction on this bottom point here. And then there was these series of white-lit, backlit windows that had these humanoid figures, and it was his impression this was a man-made vehicle. That's what his impression was, that these were actually man-made vehicles. This particular individual on the right seemed to be either pointing or waving back to the primary eyewitness. Now, North Wales Triangle, sighted over the M56 motorway on June 1st, 1997, flew across the motorway at about 100 miles an hour, startled people on the motorway, and then zipped off at a high rate of speed. That's all the details we have on that particular case. So now we move on to the ever-present, ubiquitous, everyone's favorite triangle, the TR-3B. Anything having to do with the TR-3B has to be credited to Edgar Fouché. I want to give him credit for Edgar Fouché. Also want to mention that Edgar Fouché has no first-hand knowledge specifically dealing with this aircraft. So he didn't work on this program, but he claims that he knew people at Area 51 who did. I want to make that perfectly clear. Also want to state, divert any way, shape, or form or percentage from his original testimony. I want to give you his straight answers to a number of questions that I brought to his attention. This is his response, so I don't want to divert from anything that he had to say. Technical specifications regarding the TR-3B. According to Edgar Fouché, there are two different sizes of the TR-3B, approximately 250 feet per side for the prototype version, 600 feet per side for the operational model. The overall mission of the TR-3B is logistic support and transportation for the Secret Space Command. If used on a planet or moon or large outpost, you would have a ready-made transportable space station. The TR-3B carries a crew of 4 in the prototype version. The flight control system uses variable vectored intake and thrusters on the edges and advanced multi-mode propulsion engines on each tip of the triangle. 2 nuclear reactors serve as the power source for the magnetic field disruptor, also known as an MFD. The magnetic field disruptor utilizes a mercury liquid plasma, which is pressurized to 250,000 atmospheres and rotated at 50,000 RPM, resulting in a distortion or warpage of the localized gravity field by up to 89%. Therefore, G-forces are also reduced by 89%. So in effect, what he's saying is that this MFD interacts with how gravity interacts with mass. So you could be doing 1,000 miles an hour, make a left-hand turn 90 degrees, and you'd only feel 11% of the G's. Yeah. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about anti-gravity per se, but a disruption of the gravity field. Materials used to construct the TR-3B consisted of advanced composites, metamaterials, and titanium. 3 prototype TR-3Bs were built. Cost per TR-3B in $1990 was $1 billion per craft. Sightings by Edgar Fouché is 1975 high in the atmosphere at night at Edwards Air Force Base, 1976 within the southern part of the Nellis Range, and the late 1970s Groom Air Base. That's the one we want to focus on. TR-3B utilizes telescopic landing gear legs with T-pads, operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Security Agency, and the CIA. The craft exhibits a very low electromagnetic humming noise during operation. 1 light was located on each tip of the triangle. The craft incorporates electrochromic panels used for daytime stealth operations. So when you talk about electrochromic panels, what they're essentially doing is they're electronically transferring the image, what's in back of the craft, to the forward portion, essentially allowing it to blend in with the background, basically bringing it invisible. Vents on the side of the craft serve as variable vectored intake exhaust depending upon which direction the vehicle is going. So this is a drawing put together showing you these vents right here. This is the crew compartment and then the magnetic field disruptor right here. So then I asked Edgar Fouché, Edgar, instead of you just talking about the TR-3B, can you give me an illustration of your sighting? This is what he came up with. This is Edgar Fouché's illustration of his sighting. This would have been 1979 at Area 51. This is avionics building number 9, the avionics laboratory at Area 51. Again, this is the longest runway right here. And he was going from the avionics laboratory to a blue blacked out windowed bus, Air Force bus. So it was about a 100-foot walk. And as he's walking to this bus, they had him wear these blacked out well